If you've been watching and reading about the real estate market, you're probably familiar with the idea that people are making crazy offers over list price, hoping to compete with many buyers for smaller numbers of homes. In some parts of the country, this phenomenon is starting to die down a bit, but in the Triangle, it's still going strong. But just because it's a competitive market doesn't mean that all areas, even within an individual town, are equal in their competition. Last week, Orchard released the data they collected showing the average percent over list price by zip code in the Triangle. There were many startling realizations in this information. For example, unsurprisingly, a zip code in Cary was #1 on the list for highest average over list priced offers made. But what surprised me is that other zip codes in Cary had offers that were almost 50% less over list price than the highest zip code. And there's nothing wrong with any of these areas. No weird smells or big power lines in the less competitive areas. There's a lot of variation and possibly some little pockets that if you still want to be in the most desirable locations because they're so close to all the best shopping, greenways, and have really easy commutes into RTP, there might be some spots for you to make offers where you don't have to send the sellers on a Caribbean cruise to set your offer apart from the pack. Now, after I tell you the top 10 zip codes on the list, I'm going to share with you some new data that I found to show you how important it is to remain on your toes, because markets are never stagnant. In the time it took Orchard to gather this data and publish their report, the information in some of these zip codes had already changed. So I'll share their findings and then I'll give you a quick side-by-side comparison of my findings at the end. The zip code that topped the list was, like I said, in Cary. It was zip code 27518, which is located right down here in South Cary. This area encompasses some of the most popular neighborhoods in Cary, including Lockmere and Regency, Hemlock Nature Preserve, Waverly Place, and Crossroads Shopping Center are all in this zip code. It's not surprising that it's popular. The average percentage over list in zip code 27518 is 12.1%. Now, remember, this is an average, so there were offers that were both higher and some that were lower. Zip code number 2 in the most competitive zip codes was 27560, which is Morrisville. Morrisville is a tiny little area that honestly feels like a part of Cary. It's only 31,000 people, and you see all these little pockets on the map. Those areas that are not Morrisville are Cary, so you see how you can kind of forget that you're in Morrisville and just think you're still in Cary. Anyway, Morrisville's about as close to RTP as you can get without living in the park, which is not really possible because there isn't housing there. But if you want to live where you can have the absolute shortest commute possible to RTP, Morrisville is what you're looking for. Zip code number 3 is 27712 in Durham. This is an extremely popular area in North Durham that encompasses the Eno River. This area feels a little more rural while still being close to the city. Not everything up here has large lots, but they're more common up here. This house sold for 16% over list price, and it has 2 acres and a really beautiful pool. Zip code number 4 in the most competitive zip codes was 27511, which is in Cary. This is the part of Cary that stretches from downtown Cary and south to US 1. This is what I consider old Cary, and it's mostly homes built from the 60s to the 80s or maybe the 90s. This does encompass all the walkable to downtown Cary neighborhoods, as well as older planned communities like McGregor Downs. But there's also a limited amount of new construction infill, particularly in downtown and in McGregor, and there are also some tear downs in some places in downtown Cary. Offers in 27511 were 7.9% over list price on average. The 5th zip code in our most competitive zip codes is 27519, which is also Cary. This is starting to get a little repetitive, but I promise you there are some other interesting and even surprising towns on this list, like number 8, total shocker. Anyway, 27519 is West Cary, which is where you're most likely to find newer homes in Cary. Actually, homes in 27519 were built on average in 2008, which is 18 years newer than the rest of Cary, where the average is built in 1990. Some of the most popular planned communities are out here in West Cary. Cary Park, Amberley, and the west side of Preston are all located here. The American Tobacco Trail runs through West Cary, and Thomas Brooks Park is here in West Cary. Offers in 27519 average 7.8% over list price. The 6th most competitive zip code is 27713, which is in Durham. This part of Durham encompasses parts of the Hope Valley area, South Point, and some northern parts of Chatham County that run into West Cary. This zip code is also adjacent to Research Triangle Park. The average offer in 27713 was 7.8% over list price. Number 7 on our list is zip code 27513, which is also in Cary. I think Cary wins for most competitive overall zip codes for sure. 27513 is what I usually refer to as North Cary. This area encompasses the northern half of downtown Cary up through Lake Crabtree, but then it also stretches out over across Bond Park as well as the eastern side of the Preston community. Offers average 7.5% over list price. The 8th most competitive zip code kind of surprised me a bit because it's out in the country. 27253 is out in Graham, and it's a tiny little town of only 14,000 people just south of Burlington, North Carolina. This is barely even in the triangle. It's actually about halfway between Durham and Greensboro. Because this is a country zip code, it also includes Swepsonville, which is this tiny little crossroads right here, population 1,400, and Saxapahaw, which I think I'm pronouncing correctly. Saxapahaw is this little crossroads right here, population 1,600. Now, the thing about all these little micro towns is that they're located on the Haw River. This countryside is full of, I guess you could call them rural hippies. You can tell by the funky businesses out here. The yurt at Frog Pond, Haw River mushrooms, shade tree cycling. These are all testaments to the culture of these tiny little towns, which I guess is why they're so popular. If you're in the mood for a drive in the country, be sure to stop by the Saxapahaw General Store if you visit. 27253, average 7.4% over list price. Number 9 on our list is 27540, which is Holly Springs. Holly Springs is home to Ting Park and the Salamanders baseball team, Bass Lake, and Sug Farm, which is where Holly Springs has many of their local festivals and some of the nicest planned communities in the Triangle. Holly Springs is known for its quaint downtown area and the community center where they host a weekly farmers market. And the 10th most competitive zip code on the list is 27502, which is Apex. Apex is kind of like Cary's little sister. They have lots of similarities, but downtown Apex is the measure by which all other historic downtowns measure themselves. Everyone wants to be like Apex. It's just adorable and with so many quaint shops and restaurants. And Apex is home to Western Wake County's only Costco, although if you haven't heard the news, Fuquay is getting a Costco too. I thought it was really interesting that there wasn't a single Raleigh zip code that made the top 10. What did you think? Did this list surprise you? Now, these statistics were pulled by Orchard and the report was released on August 30th. You can see the entire report with every zip code in the triangle in the link in the comments section below. But keep this in mind, I don't know what dates they pulled their data from. It could have been from the second quarter, it could have been from the first half of the year, from the month of July. But just to show you how the market is never constant, I want to show you the data I pulled for the same zip codes this week for the month of August. You can see that the top 3 spots are considerably different than the Orchard report. In 27518, the average over list was only 7% in August as opposed to 12% for the period of the Orchard report. Morrisville is higher in August than in the Orchard report, and Durham 27712 also has a big disparity between the Orchard report and my numbers for the month of August, with a difference of over 4%. The rest of the top 10 were pretty close. What does this mean? Well, it could mean that people are getting tired of bidding in the most competitive markets, or it could mean that markets are simply not linear. When markets go up or down, they don't just spike or crash. Generally speaking, there are things that impact home buying besides normal seasonal fluctuations or market crashes. More rainy days in a month can mean fewer offers. Recently renewed COVID regulations can influence offers if people decide not to travel when they had intended to. As realtors, we're always reviewing this information, collaborating with listing agents to see what they are seeing, and making sure that we have the best information to help you with your offers. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.